Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Challenge yourself to change lives with the Big Belt Buckle Challenge. They make a no-strings-attached charitable donation when participants complete one or all of the 6 athletic challenges. In doing so, they aim to build a worldwide community that transcends sport and encourages people to make a positive lifestyle change while helping those in need. For 2023, a difficult but doable set of challenges has been created by Jeff Privete himself. They have all been inspired by his personal experiences throughout 2022. The events can be done in any order, and with the exception of the Road Gravel Challenge, there is no time limit for completion of a given event. All you have to do is make it through. Completing all 6 will require an incredible amount of dedication, courage, and a willingness to embrace the journey, regardless of the outcome. Won't you join Jeff at thebigbeltbucklechallenge.org? This is the Big Belt Buckle Challenge. Hello and welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you've been listening lately, Rod Kuntz and myself, we've been knocking out a lot of shows, and that is derived from our Young Entrepreneur Syndicate group, where we are there. You know, it's really derived for the young adults that are getting into being entrepreneurs or trying to find some direction. And we love having you, but the podcast has been a hit for us. So I hope you're enjoying those. We'd love to hear from you and any topics that you might have. So as you know, if you've listened to my show for any length of time, I have relationships with Sean Whalen and Rob Bailey, as well as the Arte Syndicate. And one of the things I love about Sean Whalen and his Lion's Den is that the platform itself is the Jadari platform that he created for his group. And we use that for our Young Entrepreneur Syndicate because it builds community. And today's a prime example of that community because you get to go in there, communicate with other people around the country, get to know them, their likes, dislikes, what they're doing in business, and, you know, network. And I think people forget how important community is. And today I've got Rachelle Babler on the line, and I just excited to have you. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jim.
Yeah, so, you reached out based on my message there, and then I did a little deep dive on your website. You know, and it's just all things music. I love that. And you've got TEDx and all these other things. So we want to talk about that stuff. And but what I always like to do is start with some deep background on you, if you don't mind. So can you give us a little bit about yourself, maybe, you know, where you came from and how you got here today?
Yeah. So my story began in San Diego, California, and I've lived here pretty much my whole life. My dad was in the Navy for 28 years, so I grew up in a military family, and luckily we didn't get moved around. We stayed here in San Diego, and it's been, I have an eclectic background of things I've done. I was always drawn to medicine in my younger days. In high school, I was a student athletic trainer. I was one in college, and I thought I'd go towards like the physical therapy route or something like that. And I ended up becoming an EMT. And then after I became an EMT, I became a paramedic. So I was a paramedic for the city of San Diego for about 6 years, running around in ambulance, trying to save everybody in their 911 emergency. And after about 6 years, the contract negotiations were coming up, and many of us weren't going to get carried over. So a lot of us went back to school, and I took a forensics course and got hooked. And I actually went into forensics for almost 20 years.
Wow.
And I moved and switched careers, and I went from all the live bodies to the not live bodies. And I did a lot in forensics. I started out working crime scenes, collecting evidence, doing photography, analyzing evidence. And then I got hired with a major agency here in San Diego and strictly worked with fingerprints. So I was analyzing prints from crime scenes, from evidence. I did a lot of research. I taught all over the country the research that I had done, and did a lot of speaking at conferences as well. And then in 2016, I decided that I'd had enough. And
Sure.
My intuition was just kept telling me there's more for you to do. There's more for you to do. Actually, it was 2017. And I was flying back from a forensic board meeting from the East Coast back to San Diego. And on that flight, I decided I was done. And I gave him my 2 weeks notice. I quit. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no plans at all. And one of the catalysts to me quitting my job, and because people be like, you're nuts. Like, how do you make that just on a whim? But it really wasn't. Back in 2008, I was diagnosed with a rare brain tumor. And that diagnosis really started me on my personal development journey. And I started to do things like visualizations, affirmations, meditation, things that I would never had done before, but I was willing to do anything to get rid of that brain tumor. I just had a baby. I had a newborn and an 18-month-old. And doing meditation over the years really develops our intuition, and it taps into our soul, or it taps into creativity. It connects us to God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, but it really brings you back to who you are. And so nourishing that muscle, that inner voice over and over and over years, that's when I was on that plane flying back, where my intuition was screaming at me. And it was like, you have more to do in this lifetime. And I quit my job. I became an entrepreneur. Huge change, being 46 years old, going from 9 to 5, regular paycheck, all that stuff. And I remember people telling me, they're like, Rachelle, why are you quitting? You're at the height of your career. You're teaching all over the country. People know your name. And, you're having a midlife crisis. That's what I heard from a lot of people. Sure. And it was my midlife awakening. It was an awakening for me to really find out what my purpose was in this world. And I'm grateful I did it, because a year before I quit, my sister and my father both died 4 months apart the following year. And had I not taken that leap and said yes, I would have missed so much time with them before they both passed away. And, my sister's passing really is kind of what shifted me more back into music and sharing her story. I wrote a song after she passed away. I used that song to create a lyric video to advocate for colon cancer awareness, because she died of colon cancer at the age of 48. And that opened up the door to so many things. It got me connected to colon cancer foundations and groups where they watched the video and they wanted me to sing that song at their fundraiser, or wanted me to be a spokesperson or be on their board for Never Too Young, and all these things. And that's why I took that idea that I had, the power of advocating through music, to the TEDx stage 2 years ago. So in a nutshell, that's kind of my life and where things have come. And it's weird how music was always a passion of mine as a young child. I grew up singing in church and at high school, but I never thought I could do it for a living and get a job. I mean, I think my parents wouldn't have supported that. They would have been like, go get a real job. And here I am now, like, helping others share their stories and ideas on the TEDx stage and through music, because as we can see, especially with the song that just came out and all the controversy around it, the power of a song and what it can do, and how it can really change things for not only you as me as a writer. It's cathartic and it's an expression, but for those that listen to it and what it can do for them.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I'm a huge fan of music. You can see in my background, I've got my record player there, some old records from when I was a kid, but there's a lot to unpack in your story and many things that are of interest. I guess first and foremost, because I spent a lot of time on a plane in my past life, in my career days, a lot can happen on a plane ride back from the East Coast.
Yeah. I love plane rides. I would get so much work done on plane rides because you're sitting and you're confined and you're focused.
Yeah. There's nothing else to do. You utilize that time. Pink Floyd comes to mind, and I always had my headset on. I was like, okay, I just let my mind wander, but I'm just curious. And you gave us a little bit of a hint, about visualization and vision, having a vision, stuff like that. What was that moment on the flight were you taking notes? Were you writing what the future looks like? Was it a frustrating day? Or were you just happy go lucky going, you know what? The time is now. I'm going to leave this job. What did that feel like? Because I don't think that people can identify those powerful feelings they get that can be transitional in their life.
Yeah. And I think, one thing, as I said, meditation really nourishes that intuition of ours. I call it our internal GPS. It's constantly navigating us to do what to do next, who to connect with, or whatever it might be. And I think we dismiss it a lot because we're so busy and we're not getting present, with those downloads that come to us constantly. And it just kept coming into my subconscious. I was just kept hearing it's time to go. It's, there's more for you to do. What would it look like if you quit your job? All these things. And I remember I had met a guy a couple years before at an event where I went to go see this guy speak. His name is Jesse Elder. You might know who he is, Sean.
Yeah.
And I sat next to this guy, and for some reason, my intuition's you need to stay in touch with the guy next to you. And I did. And fast forward 2 years later, he's working right across the street from the police department I'm working at WeWork. And I saw him there, and I went to go talk to him. And it was that just opened up the door to what this would look like for me. And so when I got on that flight, I was, the management at work was not the healthiest, let's just say. And it was very stressful. And it was, I was just meeting a lot of resistance with a lot of things that I was working on as far as guidelines and procedures. And when I think, I went back to my brain tumor diagnosis, and life's really short. We don't know how much time we have on this lifetime, and things can change any moment. And, my sister had just gotten her diagnosis at that time. And I thought, you know what, it's time for me to really just look into see what that is. I'm a middle child. I'm an Aries. I'm a bit stubborn. I go against the grain. I've always kind of been like that. And when I made that decision, I will tell you instantly in my entire body, I felt a huge sigh of relief. We feel it in our body. We feel it with stress. We feel it. And when you make that decision to get out of that relationship or, start working out or whatever it might be, you feel it in your body oh, I made that. Okay, I'm going to do it, Yeah. So I felt it in my entire body, and I knew 1010% that it was the right thing to do. I had no idea what was coming with my sister and dad, but I knew it was the right thing to do.
I just find that incredible because I've been in that place too. I wouldn't say I'm as disciplined with, meditation, but visualization and having the foresight to see what's coming. I have made decisions on the fly, maybe not literally, but usually when I'm running, almost to where, like you said, you felt it in your soul 1001%, right? Almost to where your hands are sweaty or that nervous energy goes away. Okay, I did it. Even though you haven't done it yet, you did it in your mind, and the next step is being done with that. So,
I remember sitting there, and I was kind of, after I made that decision, I was oh my gosh, I'm doing this. And I remember people around me were probably what is wrong with that girl? Because then I got all antsy and I was excited. I'm okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. You knew what was coming. And that's what you were excited for, is the next chapter. The other thing I find incredible, and I've seen this a few times too, is that I had a major life event that changed the relationship with my dad for the better. And I was able to spend time with him that I would have never been able to spend. He had cancer, terminal, and I wound up helping him, living off and on in his house for a year. And when he passed, I was at ease because I wouldn't have had that time either, just like you suggested with your sister and your dad. So it's amazing how life unfolds. And I think your important message here is learning the power of visualization and meditation, and making that a part of your life.
Yeah, it truly is. And Sean just talked about this on the call this week on meditation. It truly is our superpower, and it's free. It's at our disposal anytime. It could take 1 minute or, you could do it for 30 minutes, an hour, but, and a lot of people say, well, I can't calm my mind. I can't. And it's just like going to the gym. It's just like working out a muscle. You don't start with 200 pounds. You start with 10, 15, maybe 30, 50 pounds, and then you gradually increase. And it's the same thing with meditation. You may start with a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and before you know it, you're going to be meditating for 30, 60 minutes. So, it's the same thing. You can calm down your mind. It's just practice and repetition.
Yeah. Okay. I want to jump into I'm going to call them your CSI days. We've seen the shows. Most of us love those types of shows. That was the life you were living. I mean, is it similar to what we see on TV? Is it intense and you're helping solve crimes, or is it just boring? I'm in a lab.
It's a lot of boring. I'm in the lab and very tedious work. I'm looking at fingerprints all day with my head down. Analyzing prints is a very tedious task, but an important one because, if I miss an identification, that means a criminal could be out there roaming and still committing crimes. Or if I misidentify a print, that means I could send the wrong person to jail, or
sure.
My analysis could. So, I got in right before CSI became CSI and everybody knew about it. It was right before all those shows came out. And then all of a sudden, everybody wanted to do this. It was kind of like Silence of the Lambs for FBI, an FBI agent after that. Those shows were great for educating people on what we do. But when we had to go to court and testify, we had to re-educate the jury on reality versus TV, because unfortunately, a lot of people believe what they see on TV.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, it's not really that accurate. We didn't, I didn't identify a fingerprint and like identification and all these things come up on the computer like they do in the shows. And so, yeah, we would have to, those shows were good to educate, but they made our job a little bit harder when we were testifying in court. But we would just share that with the jury.
So you mean it's possible that the Secret Service really doesn't know whose cocaine that was in the White House?
Okay, I will say with today's technology, they should know a lot more than that.
We know you guys know. Never mind. We'll move on. Talk to me about your music. You've got 2 guitars in the background. You go on your website, you can find the link to your video with the song you did for your sister. Have you always been musical and you were hiding that when you were doing your CSI journey?
Music kind of took a pause because, again, I had to get a real job.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's how I was kind of conditioned to get a job with benefits, retirement, all that stuff. And so when I was young, like I mentioned earlier, I played bells in the choir at church. In high school, I was in the vocal ensemble group. Right after high school, I bought this guitar right here with my guitar instructor. And that's like a 30-year-old Strat up there. And then I started to take some lessons. And then, from there on, it was just like, if there was a karaoke bar, I'd go sing karaoke. And then when I got divorced in 2012, that was a time of rediscovering who I was as well. And I started taking lessons again. And my guitar instructor, I'll give him credit. He's the one who's like, I think you should start writing music. And I was like, I don't know how to write songs. And I kept dismissing it. He kept asking over and over and over. And finally, I started to sit down and write songs. I love to storytell. That's like one thing I really love to do. And a song came out, and we're actually working on putting together our first album. And, like I said, the song that I wrote for my sister, and it was really my interpretation of her cancer journey, is what changed it all for me. So, and that's when I saw the power of, we know the power of music. It can elicit responses in us unexpectedly. Listening to a song takes us back to a moment in time. It makes us cry. It makes us happy. It makes us remind us of other people or someone. And so doing what I do, whether it's TEDx stage or music, we all have a story to tell. We all have something to share with others, to help others really say yes to their lives and to shift things in their lives for the better.
Music is so powerful. My daughter, I have two daughters, 7 and 9. And if I've got my playlist on from my phone, Aaron Watson, country artist, he sings a song called Diamonds and Daughters. If that song comes on, my 9-year-old looks at me. She's like, Daddy, we got to change it. And we both know why. We will end up in tears together. Driving literally, because it's all about dads raising their daughters and, going off to being married and all that stuff. It's like, we are both in tears, but it's crazy because I could turn that song on right now and start crying over it. And it's just the power of the words that we're hearing combined with the musical instrument, and the way that artist has put it together. Sometimes I worry that people don't put enough weight into songs again, like we used to, about, through our younger generations.
I think, some of the more, I think the older songs that, past generations are more storytelling than they are maybe today. Today it's just different, but certain genres certainly have, like country, I think, is a lot of storytelling. But yeah, there's definitely power in words and the melody and lyric that go with it, that feel the emotion of that song. You don't even have to have the words. Sometimes you just hear music and it can really, it can really elicit a lot in your body and your memories or whatever, and bring out something that you just didn't expect.
Yeah. And really, I think that goes back to meditation and visualization and being in tune with your thoughts and your inner being and how you feel, what's in your soul, right?
Yeah. I mean, I meditate now 2 to 3 times a day. It's non-negotiable because I've seen what happens with it. I've even channeled lyrics from meditating. Mm-hmm. Like I'll be meditating and all of a sudden, like a string of lines will come through and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then it becomes a song. So, there's so much power in just getting present and still. And I think we're in these fast-paced hustle grind, world today with so much noise and distraction around us with notifications and just all kinds of stuff, that really taking that time to get present is gold for you.
Yeah. Interesting. Hey, quick left turn. If you're listening to the show, show number 187 is with Naz Bashetti. She wrote a book called Pause, Breathe, and she was the executive assistant for Steve Jobs. She walks us through a meditation exercise in that podcast. So if you don't even know where to start, you can go back to that show and go through that. It's awesome. And in that interview, we talk all about meditation, the strength of that, and Steve Jobs' meditation practices, as well as hers. And now she's a top speaker. I was thinking about that when you were talking.
Wow.
I'd like to give people some tools. It was a great interview and a great book she's got. So check it out, number 187. Sorry for the left turn there.
Oh, that's awesome to know. I'm going to go listen to it.
Incredible story, in my opinion. So, all right. Well, what I want to talk about now is kind of your transition. You've combined your experience, your meditation, where your soul is at with music, and you wound up on a TEDx talk stage. And I watched that video, and it's powerful. What put you there? How did you wind up on that stage? And you can wrap that up with how you help others do the same.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm a middle child Aries. I'm go big or go home girl. And so I tend to do things, where I take big steps and big leaps. And when I had done outreach with my sister's song and lyric video, and I got the response from colon cancer, I just made a list of, 50 colon cancer groups, top ones in the world and country, and I did cold email to all of them. Can you please listen to this? This is my sister's story. Can we bring awareness together and help create impact together? And the response I got was, wow, that made me cry. Yes, I would love to help share your sister's story. Can we put it in our website? Can you write a blog in our magazine? Can you become a spokesperson, go through our training? Can you, all these, a cold email. So this is one thing, for people who are trying to get their message out. don't be afraid to reach out to people, because when you have passion and purpose behind that, they're going to see it. It was very genuine. And I did it not knowing what the outcome would be. I had no idea. I just wanted to share my sister's story. This was kind of a legacy piece of me, carrying on her story to help create impact in some way through her loss. And when all this stuff happened, I was like, wow, this idea, the power of advocating through music, could maybe help others. So that's when I took it to the TEDx stage, because TED is all about, their slogan is ideas we're spreading. You don't go on TED to just tell stories. You have to have an idea that people are going to be able to think differently, feel differently, take action in some way. And I started applying to TEDx events like I have my clients do. And I got accepted to TEDx West Monroe. And I took my message, my idea, to that stage to share with others. And the cool thing about doing that is I've had a lot of people reach out to me and tell me that they finally got their colonoscopy. They finally got screened, and they found precancerous polyps. They were removed, but had they not gone, those are what typically turn into cancer. So that if I told myself, if I could just help one life, I would have done my job. But it's been many, many, many people who've reached out. And so, that's the power of, again, I started my TEDx talk with part of her song, and I just went into her story and how it all came together. And, it's unfortunate, my sister story and losing her developed this type of purpose-driven work, but I feel her with me every step of the way. So it's an
incredible tribute to your sister.
Yeah. It gets me all teary because I feel her with me.
Yeah. And looking at the turn of events in your life, going from this career and the security of that and making a decision on a plane to shift gears, who would have ever thought that your future career, not only working for yourself as an entrepreneur, but is with passion and purpose for your sister too?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been pretty incredible. Like, she guides me all the time. And I know there's more to come with music in a bigger way. And I'm figuring out that right now with Through the Lines Down and other things, but it's really exciting to think about. And I'm so grateful that I listened to my intuition that day on that plane, and I took that leap to make a change, because I've never looked back ever, not one day. I have not, even through the hard times and challenging times, and I've never looked back.
Let me ask you something, and I just haven't asked it of some of our other guests, including Naz when she was on. And I think that my interview with her is what started kind of this trend of people I've interviewed on my shows where meditation has become such a big part of their lives. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Is it because there's so much noise out there right now that we're looking for ways to slow that down a little bit? I mean, it is noisy out there. And by the way, I live in rural Montana. It's noisy here. I don't mean that in a literal sense. I mean, you hear cows and horses outside, but when you look at the media and what we're infected with on a daily basis, what are your thoughts on that?
For me, meditation is really getting back to who you are. I think it's getting back to home. Before you were groomed, and you were, you had all these limiting beliefs imposed upon you. And it's really getting back to who you are, because when you start to feel like, if you think of little children, they're not afraid to say things. They're not afraid to express themselves. They're not afraid. They are who they are when they're little. And then as we grow up, all these limiting beliefs and things are imposed on us, and conditioning, a lot of conditioning, and we lose who we are. So to me, meditation not only gets us back to who we are, but it connects us to God, like, a higher being that is really guiding us through this thing called life. And when you get back to your soul essence of what you are, which I believe it's always been music, then you start to see what you can do with that to create a purpose-driven business or to create something that you genuinely love so much. It is not work. It is not hard. It's fun. It's play. And it's going back to when you're a little kid, fun and play,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do think it's, really taking time to just it's really giving yourself a gift to just cut everything out, all the noise, all the distractions, and really just get focused and centered. And it gives you a lot of peace. And I think it really strengthens your confidence in taking those leaps and taking those yeses.
Said something just now that I 100% believe is that music takes us back to God and understanding our soul. Unfortunately, I heard an incredible speech once from Charlie Kirk about music and how could you deny that music isn't a gift from God, right? Because of the emotions that it evokes in us and how it makes us feel, and
Yeah.
what else out there creates that type of music, that type of emotional response. Yeah. And I can't find the interview. If anybody hears that interview or knows of it, send me the link, because I had an atheist client who's an avid music fan, and he's 96 years old. And I was trying to explain it to him. He's like, "Oh, Jim, that's just a crock, right?" But I really believe that. And kudos to my pastor. We have incredible music at our church here in Montana. And he said something not too long ago that I just thought was so awesome. He says, "Hey, I want to thank the older people here." And he paused. He says, "Because I know the music here is loud, and I know that this might not be your favorite thing, but this is evoking an emotion in a younger audience that's bringing them into this building." So he was like generally thanking people, but it just showed me, how strong and powerful music can be. And I love that you're using that as a tool to share your message. So often, we talk about the noise. Music has just become noise, I think. Yeah, there's some singer songwriters out there still, but I think, the ones that are just out for the money, somebody else is writing those songs, somebody else is writing that music, and then somebody's singing it. It's like, did you even live that, bro? I mean, I think Jason Aldean means what he meant in his song, but that's out there right now. But it's just crazy. So I commend you on that. Tell us, as we wrap up here, tell us a little bit about, what people can expect if they connect with you, if they go to their website, what resources you're providing for them and what you're doing for them.
Yeah. So for the past 3 or so years, I was primarily helping clients with the TEDx stage. So many people have said, "I want to do TEDx talk," and they don't know how, and it's quite a bit of a process. And so, my team and I help people get clear on that idea, because a lot of people don't know what their idea is. Mm-hmm. And you have to have it really clear, because when you start applying to TEDx events, event coordinators are looking at hundreds and hundreds of applications, and your idea better stand out and better look, be very clear. So we help a lot with that messaging content for your applications. And then the second part is starting to apply to TEDx events. And then the third piece is when someone gets accepted to a stage, then my team works with them on the architecture of the talk. Like, what's your talk going to look like now? Memorization techniques, because you have to memorize your TEDx talk. There's no prompts or teleprompters or anything. And just getting ready for that stage. It's a little different than other stage. You have to stay on that red carpet. You can't walk all over the stage, and just things like that. So that's the TEDx piece. And then the music really is sharing your story to advocate for something you're passionate about. Like me, it was advocating for colon cancer. I worked with a client who had a routine procedure, injections done in her back, and one went wrong. She became paralyzed. Mm-hmm. And we wrote a song for her, and she's using that to share with doctors so that they know of this really, really, really rare condition that can happen and that they're aware of it. So I'm an advocate. I'm a parental rights advocate for my kids and their schools. And I've been an advocate my whole life, whether it was in medicine, in forensics, and now, through music. So I really enjoy helping people share their message in a different way that's going to create human impact.
I love it. Well, look, we'll wrap there. That's a wonderful closing, hearing about what you do for others and what they can expect if they connected with you. So thank you for your time and sharing your stories, and just blessings for the music you're producing. So incredible. All right. That's a wrap. Please, if you love the show, share it with a friend.